Let's run around the Big Ten right quick. Spring ball's done. What are we thinking? Biggest questions. Where's our head at for these different teams? Ohio State, that quarterback battle's still a battle. I was up there the other day, and Ryan Day goes into a press conference, and they said, "You really telling us this quarterback battle's still undecided?" And he was like, "Yeah." And here's basically what he's saying. You may think you know who's going to win this job. They may think they know who they expect to win the job. But like I can think the bus is showing up at 10 o'clock this morning. If it's 9:52, I can't board the bus yet. It hasn't pulled up. You may think Julian Saint's going to win the job, but until he takes the job, you can't name him the starting quarterback. So, yeah, I, like many of you, think he'll win the job. He hadn't won the job yet. O-line, D-line, they got to replace like 8 of 9 starters along the lines of scrimmage. Can they do that? New coordinators, both sides of the ball as well. And then just think about the amount of leadership, the intangible nature here. Aside from all the tangibles that they have to replace, it's going to be a good team again this year. But there's a healthy amount of question, especially for a team coming off a national title. Next up, hop on the plane all the way out west. Did we connect in Portland? Did we fly direct into Eugene? Whomst amongst us knows. Oregon. Is Oregon going to have another seamless transition at quarterback? You know how blessed they were to go from Bo Nix right to Dylan Gabriel and kind of not miss a beat. Well, you take that for granted. Now you expect it again. You just go from that to Dante Moore. Is Dante Moore going to be ready to play at that level? He'll be good. Is he going to be ready to play at that level? 3 of 5 offensive linemen this year that start for them will have come from the transfer portal. We think they killed it. They think they killed it. People have thought they nailed it in the portal before and still found themselves shaking their heads east-west, not north-south, come November. So Lanning and his staff, they know what they're doing. Just kind of want to see it validated. Montana State and Oklahoma State first 2 weeks at home, want to see it validated. Let's move along. We hop back on the jet. We found our only direct flight in history outside of the charter services from Eugene to State College. Somehow the runway was big enough. Penn State, did they really elevate at wide receiver enough? Devontae Ross out of Troy, Kyron Hudson out of USC, Trevor Pena out of Syracuse. They added those 3. I was so proud of them. They've been a good wide receiver room away for a few years. Now we find out if they addressed it properly. Early returns are good, but no one's played a game yet. And then also, if they did, well, it's Drew Aller's time. Because if they did, you got the ground game, you'll have the defense, you'll have the line of scrimmage play. If you got the wide receivers to throw to, no more excuses up there. You got to get the job done, and that doesn't mean just contending. You got to win the Big Ten this year. You got to go compete for a national championship this year at the very least, because the window, while it won't close after this year, has never been more open for Penn State in the James Franklin era than it will be this year. That'll be a good YouTube short, I think. Moving along. Ann Arbor, Michigan, short flight. We're going to hop over to Ann Arbor right quick. At Michigan, the Bryce Underwood era will happen. Is it immediate or is it eventual? Meaning, is he just going to be their day one starter this year? And that's a question I don't think anybody's ready to answer yet. But the wide receiver room, no matter who their starter is, still looks underwhelming to me coming out of spring. It's college football. It's a developmental level of the sport. Crazier things have happened, but they have that, and then they also lost their top 6 tacklers. So they got a lot to replace, sort of both sides of the ball, but yet the foundation of Michigan's roster, I trust enough to think that blindly I'll buy them being a contender, but being one of the big 4 in the Big Ten, just sort of being up there, sight unseen. Got to find that out this year. Lincoln? We're going to go to Lincoln? Yeah, let's go to Lincoln. Let's go to Nebraska. At Nebraska, how do these coordinators impact the team? You got Dana Holgerson, who is now the offensive coordinator there. Dylan Raiola's in year 2 at quarterback. They're good at receiver. Love Emmett Johnson at running back. Very promising along the offensive line. But John Butler at DC, they were 70th, or they're in the 70s in returning defensive production. And man, they got some really, really big shoes to fill there. Let me cut in really quick and ask, look, prayer hands, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you think you're subscribed, check and make sure. Over 50% of you aren't. It's free, it doesn't sign you up for anything, and it helps us keep the show free, college football year-round, the way God intended it. All right, back to the clip. I think they will go as those coordinator hires go. Matt Rule, typically you get into this portion of his tenure from year 2 to year 3, this portion of his tenure at a program, that's when the hockey stick effect happens, right? That's when they really ramp up production. Okay, we got to see if history repeats itself here this year. Turn the Page, great song by Bob Seger. Prefer the live version to the studio version. But we turn the page here and we look at USC. So, USC defense last year went from 121st to 56th in points per game. I think they'll improve again this year. How high do they climb? Is this truly a complementary team this year? And if it is, that probably means a lot of close games again. And they were terrible in those last year. Do they have the competitive maturity to win one-possession games? That's what kept them from being a playoff caliber team last year. And you think about a team that had a 7-5 record in the regular season. I think it was 7-5. And you think playoff, like Jim Morris Sr., man, they're not even close. Well, you change one bounce here and there in those games, and they are. That's the point. They're both so far away and really, really close, but they also need a run game. They were 82nd last year in that category. So those are some of the things coming out of spring I still have questions about with USC. I'm shaking my paper here because I want to talk to you about one of the sleeper playoff candidates nationally. Illinois was 5-1 in one-possession games last year. They were the anti-USC. So here's the first question. Do they just carry that over? Because they're way up there in returning production. Most of their guys come back, including Altmaier at quarterback. So if they have that in their DNA again, then the next question is, when they play USC and Indiana and Ohio State in a 4-week stretch, can they win 2 out of those 3 games? Because last year, they were held under 10 points against Penn State and Oregon. So the big game, like where they really ramped up level of competition, they got stifled. So the mark of progress this year will be, do they still win the games they were winning last year? And then do they compete in a couple of them that would not have been all that competitive last year? And also, they lost some production at receiver, 109 receptions, over 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns. If they backfilled there, that is a sleeper playoff contender at Illinois. Iowa, it's not a great mystery what the question is at Iowa. It's an evergreen question. Will they be worth anything offensively? Will they be decent? Will they be average? Will they even be pedestrian? It would be acceptable because of what they always are defensively. They got Gronowski out of San Diego or South Dakota State. That's why I don't ever suggest writing SDST on your notes, because that's San Diego State to me first and foremost. But this is South Dakota State. He was a 3-year starter there. And the last 3 years, he was good for 2,500 to 3,000 passing yards, good touchdown to interception ratio guy, and he's mobile. He can run the ball. So Iowa, who knows? They may have their best quarterback they've had up there in a while. What does it mean? What does it all mean? Washington? Do I hear Washington? Not a last name. It's an actual university there in Seattle. At Washington, what level can Damon Williams take this offense to? I'm really high on him. Now, I'm really high on Jed Fish year 2 anyway. So they probably have a very underrated portal class, really underrated at quarterback relative to the other big national names. A guy who I think given a year now can really pop them as a sleeper team. And you look at the way they start, Colorado State, UC Davis, Washington State, Ohio State just goes up there week 4. One of the toughest places to play in America that no one east of the Rockies really respects, but should. That would be the early candidate for upset of the year category there. You got still an inexperienced Ohio State team going on the road to Washington. I'm not calling the shot. I'm just saying. And lastly, Wisconsin. This is tough. Wisconsin did not get out of the blocks right under Luke Fickell. And now we're sitting here in year 3 and we're asking a question we should never ask about Wisconsin, and that is, what is the identity of Wisconsin football? Now, you know what it was for 1,000 years, and then they tried to reinvent it, and it didn't work. And so now you've got changes at coordinator, and you're bringing in a portal quarterback again, and that also coincides with maybe trying to get different personnel. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of Wisconsin right now. And I think it's an example of hiring the right head coach and that head coach making the wrong call out of the gate. Lincoln Riley did it offensively or defensively when he went to USC. Lincoln Riley's a heck of a coach. He made poor hiring decisions defensively. Fickell's a heck of a coach. He made poor hiring decisions offensively. So it doesn't make them any lesser of a coach. It just means now you're going to have to give them a little more time than you wanted to get it right. That's why it's really important to hire right out of the gate.